This isn't just a walk up the stairs. When you have an irregular...
Oh, that's amazing. I thought.
Welcome to We Talk Fantasy.
I was going to say, I don't even know if this is recording yet. It might, it may not. Morgan Freeman may have just joined the podcast for all I know. This could be We Talk Fantasy. Boys, welcome, I think, to recapping week one and previewing week two.
That was very fitting. I think Morgan Freeman was talking about an irregular heartbeat, which definitely sums up my Sunday and Monday. What was a fantastic week one of not only real football, but fantasy football.
Facts. And guys, I'm pretty sure we're live. I see that little counter up in the top left corner.
Good, thank God.
Let's send it.
Kyle, you were at a real game in person in Buffalo. What happened, buddy?
I was lucky to go to Buffalo, and I see, yeah. You know I'm not actually heartbroken by it. Steelers were better than I think everybody thought they would be, because everybody picked the Bills, and they were wrong. So, but atmosphere was insane, to put it nicely. Best crowd I've ever been a part of. It was a ton of fun, and I can't wait to go back with everybody else and go crazy.
Quick follow-up, Kyle, before we move on to recapping week one. When you're at a Buffalo Bills game, and this was a 1:00 kickoff, are you like constantly checking your phone to see what's going on around the league and checking fantasy teams, or are you just so dialed in to Josh Allen and the Bills?
So only during media timeouts. So
yeah, there you go.
Whenever they're off the field, it's a pain in the ass to get into the Wi-Fi because there's 70,000 people trying to use the cell service and the Wi-Fi. So you got to get a little lucky with it. But no, only during the media timeouts. They have a little counter up there so you can quickly scroll through, and I could see that I was getting my butt kicked in 2 leagues and I was doing okay in the other. So
nice.
That's what I always remind people, like Levac and I, when we do things on the field for the Albany Empire. People are like, do you get nervous running in front of 16 or 12,000 people? I'd be like, no one's listening to me. They're all on their phones checking their scores. I couldn't tell you what happened in between plays. Everyone's looking at their fantasy teams and checking out scores. So that's exactly it. Like you said, 70,000 people are all trying to do the same thing. Some NFL stadiums have a separate TV.
Yeah.
Like that is just for out-of-town scores because they know how important it is for other people. So that's Jacksonville, I think, is one of them. MetLife Stadium used it in between quarters, so they know what they're going to.
The Bills on their Jumbotron, they actually have 2 Jumbotrons. One on the Bills side, back end zone towards the tunnel. They actually do a fantasy scoreboard, so it keeps you updated on all that. Like the top yardage of rushing, catching, quarterback, and kickers. And then on the main Jumbotron in the other side of the end zone, they do have the scores around the league. So they actually got both.
Nice, man. So Buffalo, Western New York is taking care of you. Although the Bills did not come away with a victory, still a lot to be excited about this season for Buffalo. Now, you are enjoying some NFL action in person. I was at a bachelor party, which, as my buddy Levac says, is like my 15th one, it seems like, over the last 4 to 5 years. I'll just say in the Verona area for sponsorship purposes. I'll just say I was in the Verona area, and I was inspired because of Chet-Roulette's success last week. I walked up to a roulette table and thought, oh, when I was a kid, I liked the show Entourage. The old tradition was put 5 on red, and then I saw, 5s are not minimums anymore like they used to be 10 years ago at the casino. What the fun about Chet-Roulette was that we didn't know what was coming, the unpredictability of it. Chet, as unpredictable as Chet-Roulette can be, I want to steal it. I want to go first on Chet-Roulette. I want to be the one to spin it because I didn't get to do it in the Verona area, if that's okay with you. Stepping into your own
Go ahead and take a spin, guys.
The most exciting part about what's happened involving fantasy football in week one was Ravens Raiders on Monday Night Football. It was so good when you get a Monday Night Football finish, when you got action across the board with like a Lamar Jackson and a Darren Waller and players that every single drive, every single stop, Justin Tucker, the kicker, I don't care how many leagues you're in or how competitive or non-competitive your league is, it felt like every game in everybody's league was going to get decided by at least something happening in that Ravens-Raiders game. Not sure how you guys felt. And you know what, Chet, at least I'll let you start off with this. That was my favorite part of the whole week, was the finish in fantasy because of Monday Night Football.
Quick question. Were either of you gentlemen awake for the game? And be honest. That's a no for Kyle.
Out.
I was on the couch hoping to stay awake. I saw up until the third quarter, and then I was out.
You want to know how you guys weren't awake is because our Twitter thread was just me freaking out about a fake bet that I thought about placing, and I actually would have hit. But no, I think, and I don't like just throwing out generalities without doing research, but I'm going to do it anyway. That might have been the craziest final quarter and a half in like the history of fantasy football for a Monday night. Because like you said, guys, so many big players in terms of fantasy, and that overtime, I can't even imagine the amount of different outcomes that could have happened, like realistically could have happened. Let's start with, so we get to overtime, which for anybody who does fantasy and Monday night goes to overtime, it's like you throw the papers. Like you've just been waiting for the clock to go down. Maybe you were just like, fingers crossed Lamar Jackson doesn't get another score or another 20 yards. And then like you think you're going to do it. And then Carlson hits that huge long field goal to send it to OT. And you're like, it's over. Like Lamar's totally going to score in this overtime. So let's start with the Raiders get to the one. I think they've won the game. They don't win. Now they're at the 1 yard line. They do not hand it off to Josh Jacobs because he's been limping and his foot's hurt. So that's like a 6-point swing in someone's favor against someone's favor. Then you get the interception on that drive. So now 2 points in favor of the Ravens defense, which was a popular play for week 1. The Lamar Jackson fumble for -2. And then we're talking about they bring out the kicker. How many people? I have a guy, the Raiders kicker in multiple leagues. He's got a huge leg. He's made like 22 field goals in a row. Like he's awesome. They bring him out, delay of game. So like let's say you were about to think you're going to get a 3-point win. They take him out. Like the amount of ebbs and flows of that overtime in terms of fantasy was something I've never seen before.
Well, then you got to also look at like Darren Waller had a big game, but he missed 53% of the catches because he was targeted 19 times.
Oh my God. Absolute fantasy stud. And it could have been even more crazy, as you mentioned, Kyle, because a couple of those were drops, tons of targets. That's why I even texted you guys. I was like, are we sure Kelsey is like bona fide number 1 tight end this year? Because Waller could, if he gets that kind of target share every game, my God, like he will put up Travis Kelce numbers consistently.
Yeah.
Go ahead, yeah.
I think the only thing that's going to hold Waller back from tight end 1 is the line and quarterback play, because there were some throws that Carr missed that were wide open, and they were just bad throws where Kelsey's going to do the same amount of work that Waller can do at any week with half the target. So if 1 week that Kelsey gets that kind of mismatch or whatever it may be, it's game over. But if you put Waller on the Chiefs, he would be well above and beyond what Kelsey does.
I agree with that. He's a way better athlete. I think they actually said it in the broadcast.
He's a wide receiver.
Gruden says that Waller has Jerry Rice speed with Tim Brown route running.
It's stupid.
I mean, we're talking about 2 Hall of Famers. Like, give me and that play a different position. Like, he is a receiver. Like, I have no idea what level of blocking he's capable of, but he is a receiver, and he just is a matchup nightmare because of his size.
It's great when all three of us think the same thing, because right when Kyle's about to say that, I was going to jump in and say, you guys are talking about tight end numbers. Those are receiver numbers. And before I even needed to say it, you two already gotten it through that. Yes, if we're going to talk about Kelsey numbers, that is truly a tight end receiver number. And who knows, maybe that's when you play like weird stuff with your tight end slot position. Some leagues have that expanded slot where it's wide receiver, running back, tight end. I'm in a few leagues that has wide receiver / tight end as a secondary slot that you go 2-2 double flex. And that's so sometimes you can take advantage of a guy like Waller who he's putting up numbers like that. Chet, you mentioned the fantasy impact. There's one game last year, you guys might remember, in December of 2020, the Ravens-Browns Monday Night Football Classic, where like everything was going on in that game. The difference, though, that game was played on December 15th. You do the math, that's the quarterfinals of most fantasy football leagues. So it may have not had the same type of impact that this game had because it was week 1.
Or I also, just last year as well, the Tyler Lockett 50-point game. But that only affects everyone in that direct matchup. Like, you has to be either you're playing against Lockett or you have Lockett. Where this one, it was across the board. So many fantasy players. Like you said, it's week 1. Everybody is still alive. And so as someone, as we've talked about on last Chet-Roulette, I am in 10 fantasy leagues. Every single one of my leagues had a fantasy implication from Monday night.
Wow.
None of them were decided. How crazy is that? And in one of those leagues, I was 2 points up, and the guy had Josh Jacobs. So that 1 yard play, I'm like, oh, man. It was one of those, when you're in 10 leagues, like, oh, I'm going to lose this one. It's okay. And then when I saw the sneak by Carr, I was like, oh, my God, I'm alive. Into off air in our very lengthy pre-production meeting. I asked you guys how many wins you think I had out of my 10 teams. Kyle, I think, guessed 4, and Gaz guessed 3. Combine those numbers, and you're not even there. 8-2 in week 1. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And one of the league I lost, I actually should have taken Gaz's advice and started Tom Brady over Josh Allen. Wouldn't have mattered. Still got blown out. But that one did not go in my favor, starting Josh Allen.
If we just spun the wheel there on Chet-Roulette, we'd be collecting our chips right now. That was a great spin. I don't know if we need another spin. We can, Chet, it's up to you. We can stay with roulette, or we can move on to a new segment we're about to debut here in week 1. I'm going to let you make the decision what we're doing with our chips.
Oh, I mean, it's like talking about Christmas. You have a new gift for us. Like I can't wait any longer on that. We got to talk about the new segment.
We talk fantasy apologies. And even seeing the WTF abbreviation, does it make you think about the Washington football team? Sometimes I know it's WFT, but it makes me think the same thing every time. Chet, I'll let you take the lead on how are we, us three, going to offer up our sincerest apologies to certain people.
Dearest Joe Mixon and family members, we apologize for the harsh words over the last 3 years that we've said about the lovely Joe Mixon, who was RB2 in week 1. Anybody that drafted Joe Mixon, we apologize for calling you stupid, because 29 carries, 127 yards and a touchdown, handful of receptions. Joe Mixon, you did us dirty week 1. Congratulations.
My apology, dear Melvin Gordon. Sometimes I like to humbly brag that your high school football coach was my high school football coach. And really that has no correlation as if I was a better football player, because that has nothing to do with anything, but I just like dropping that random stat. And because of that, I had you on a few fantasy football teams this year. In particular, one team where I decided to keep Odell Beckham Jr. in my lineup at 3:30 in the afternoon and thought, what do I do? I only have one player that I can now cut. Do I cut Melvin Gordon to save my victory this week, thinking he's going to bomb? Yeah, I'll do it. I'll pick up Nelson Aguilar and hope he gets me like 9 or 10 points. Now, Aguilar did, and I did get the victory. But I had to make a decision. Do I sacrifice week 1's win for hoping that Melvin Gordon would stink week 1? And I did. And I'm so sorry, Melvin Gordon, that you now are in one of my leagues sitting on the waiver wire. And here I am thinking I was going to just reclaim you on Wednesday. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. That could be a fantasy shifting move by me, sacrificing a win. I blame Adam Schefter, Melvin Gordon. The new thing is these NFL reporters sit on their stories for that engagement on a Sunday. We're on to you, Schefter and Glazer. I blame you. But Melvin Gordon, I'm sorry.
Oh, man, I wish I could have seen a replay of your face on that 70-yard touchdown. Oh,
killing me.
Make you feel better, and we can save this for later on in this episode. I am a high seller on Melvin Gordon. I think this is where the stock's going to be the highest. Mm-hmm. I think that backfield's going to slowly shift to Javonte. And so this is the highest that Melvin Gordon's stock will be all season. So, I mean, you have no stock in Melvin right now. But make you feel any better, I do not think that is sustainable vintage Melvin Gordon. I think that was kind of a rarity in week 1.
I hope not, because he's a backup running back for me that I grabbed late. So here's a hope.
No, go with Kyle. I mean, that Kyle could be your chance to trick someone. Mm-hmm. You might take one more week, but I mean, you take away that long touchdown run, and it was a pretty pedestrian day.
My apology, I think, is a little less traditional, but dear San Francisco running backs, I'm very sorry that you have to be playing for this team in week 1 because every year it seems like one of you goes down with something that's career end or season ending. I'm sorry. Hopefully not career ending. And Raheem, it was your turn this year. So Raheem, owners, I'm very sorry. Elijah, best of luck, my friend, in San Francisco.
Wait, wasn't this the second year that Raheem got hurt week 1?
Did Raheem get hurt? Or was that the
Jerick McKinnon. It feels like, to Kyle's point, it feels like anybody who gets a carry in week 1 for the Niners is hurt. It's even hard to keep track at this point.
Yeah, it's so I feel so bad for Mostert. Like, he must literally be made out of glass because he's a cool story too. It's not like, Saquon, who is the top 5 or 10 pick, whatever he was. This guy, wasn't he a practice squad and special teamer? Like,
that literally got brought up just
because of the previous injuries. And now, like, he sold his soul to the devil. Like, the devil was like, I'll let you be in the NFL, but you get a season-ending injury week 1 every year. Like, I'll take it, man. Let's do it.
Tevin Coleman's in there somewhere too. Remember Tevin Coleman? One year was supposed to be the breakout for the Niners, and there was some Super Bowl storyline with him. It's constant. You're right, Kyle. Oh,
Kyle, I thought you were going to apologize to our Thursday night game, to the boys.
No,
because Zeke did stink it up. But
oh my! Well, what was
we were all wrong on Dak. Dak was phenomenal.
What was that stupid stat that you said? The offensive coordinator Kellen said he audibled out of 12 runs.
Yeah, it was like he called 24 run plays and they only ran 11 or something, and Dak audibled. Which, I mean, he's getting it done. It's not like they weren't moving the ball, but
yeah. And don't get me wrong, that Tampa Bay line was stupid. Congrats, guys! You have the best line in football by a mile.
Let's slow down on that. Although that guy in the middle might be the strongest guy in the league. What's his name?
Vita Vea.
Cow. I love that he plays with no gloves, no armbands, no sleeves. That guy's a freaking football player. I love it. And so now that we've done our apologies, can we now write WTF letters?
Love letters?
No, not love letters. Like letters of where were you, buddy? And I'll start off. And I'm not even going to go with, I have multiple options of who these letters could go to. WTF to Brandon Ayuk. Ayuk. And somehow, thank the Lord, I didn't get him in any leagues, but I was very high on Brandon Ayuk. After what we saw last year, now a second-year guy. He's only really competing with Debo and Kittle. 0 catches? I mean, that's devastating. You're not going to win if your guy puts up a goose egg in your wide receiver 2 slot. Whoo, Brandon Ayuk, WTF, my friend.
My WTF goes to somebody that I was telling you guys that I reached for, that I said would probably have a good game. His counterparts had a pretty good, okay game, but this man did not. Mike Gesicki, where the hell were you? Now, you got a whopping 0 points on my bench, thankfully, because I made a clutch trade to save me in that league. But you were only targeted 2 times out of 2 his 27 attempts. You also only saw 21 snaps to your backup's 38. What is it? Can you not block? You're a monster. Why can't you block? Because that's what they were used for. So what are you doing? Get your shit together. Get back on the field. I need you as trade bait.
Good luck with that, Kyle.
Yeah, I know.
Double apologies here. One, Ronald Jones. In the Godzilla Media League, you'll notice I lost by 1.5 because I had Ronald Jones going on Thursday night thinking, hey, I'll be good. High-scoring game maybe for the Cowboys and Bucks. With Mark Ingram on my bench, Devin Singletary on my bench, I went with what I thought was going to be running back 1 to steal a goal line touchdown at some point in the game. That's your fault, Ronald Jones. How could you do that to me? But the bigger one, I think this is the biggest fantasy football storyline of anybody in week 1. Anybody. What the hell happened to Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers is the Heron issue, as the graphic says. That is, I would like to talk to a ton of managers who had Rodgers. He must have cost more managers victories in week 1 than any fantasy player. You're expecting what? Depending on your scoring, 25 to 40 out of him per week? And he dropped a goose egg? 0-2? That's a 20-point swing for Aaron Rodgers. What the hell happened? It was against the Saints.
Yeah. I mean, the Saints, I think we all kind of underestimated the Saints. And I tried to tell people, like, yeah, it's going to be relying on Jameis Winston having vision. But that defense is still really good. It's been good for a few years now. And so we saw that on Sunday. I'm attributing it to rust, like all of the off-season distractions and not being there. And I don't know, man. I've heard these rumors that he's trying to tank so he gets traded. I can't imagine a competitor like him doing that. I find that really hard to believe. Either way, it was hard to watch. It was ugly. Every Packers player suffered because of it. Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, Robert Tonyan. I mean, it was across the board disgustingly bad. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we look ahead to week 2 of how we approach that. But, oh, my gosh, I did not see that coming. And I'm sure a lot of people took L's because of it.
No, I agree. Like, what was going on? Like, did him and Jameis's vision switch?
Did a little Space Jam. He touched the football and he took the vision.
Yeah, I mean, that defense also just got ripped apart. What Jameis throw 15 passes and shredded them for 250 and 5 touchdowns or whatever. I didn't even remember the stat line, but like,
I believe it was 5 passing touchdowns.
You gotta have a pulse there, Packers. Like, you're not that bad of a defense. You're middle of the road. You're not getting torched up by Jameis Winston in his first career start with the Saints, kind of bad with all backup receivers. Like, that's the other part that is like, what is going on? It's all backups besides Alvin Kamara. Like, ugh.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you gotta think if you played against Winston, like, okay, you take the L, like 20 maybe % of fantasy owners, and that might be even a high number, might have played it maybe in 15. And that stat line we just mentioned, most remarkable part about it, he had under 100 yards passing when he hit his 4th touchdown. So that 250 came later, which is a crazy stat to think about.
Unbelievable. And I think it's sustainable. I don't think he's going to throw that many touchdowns every week, but Jameis Winston has been a fantasy guy for most of his career. Now, that's because he was trailing in Tampa Bay most of the time because of his own doing. They were throwing it all the time. I don't know. Sean Payton, like they're going to run a good offense. And if he does get Michael Thomas back at some point, the offense could get better. So Jameis Winston, if you got him as your backup quarterback in your draft, or if he's sitting on your waiver, try to find a spot on your bench for him, because he could be a guy that could be a consistent top 10 quarterback for the rest of the season.
Oh, like how, yeah.
And don't forget who comes back after their bye in week 7. If Michael Thomas can be anything close to 20.
That's what I said, bro.
I totally missed it.
Yeah, I said Michael Thomas comes back.
I was totally looking at that because I didn't even realize how little Devontae actually put up. Because I was like, I thought he had some catches, and it was all in the first quarter.
I know exactly what Kyle was thinking, because he heard the word waiver and he thought, okay, how many Michael Thomas people? How is he still out there? Did somebody dump him yet? Did somebody need a roster? I heard the word waiver just like you did, Kyle. And before we get to the waiver wire, I want to give love to our friends over at Mohawk Honda. The current supply and demand challenges within the auto industry makes this a perfect time to get your top dollar for your vehicle. And right now at Mohawk Honda, you can take advantage of the Kelly Black Book Instant Cash Offer. We're talking about putting cash in your hand for your vehicle the same day you come in, even if you don't buy from them. It's an incredible deal. Mohawk Honda consistently keeps their fully stocked vehicle selection for you, pre-owned vehicles and more. I know this from Mohawk Honda. I've got my Pilot out in the driveway. I tell you all about the times where I'm going to drive Kyle right to Mohawk Honda because he's not far away from me. We're going to yank Chet off a TV one day and just have him go to Mohawk Honda. He's married now, Kyle. He's going to learn that that's the best place to go. He already knows. But stop in, say hello to our guy, Greg Johnson. I love these nicknames, by the way. This is the first time we get to shout out the guys. Jake Hot Sauce Doyle. Louis the VIP Man Morales. I feel like I'm doing intros for the UFC with these guys. It's a vast selection of vehicles. Honda certified pre-owned Kelly Blue Book deals going on right now. Mohawk Honda, come visit them. Glenville, New York, Freeman's Bridge Road. For more information, check out our bottom line, our ticker here on our video side. Mohawk Honda, where they always go out of their way to please you. Let's hit the waiver wire. Like somebody picking up a new vehicle from Mohawk Honda. Chet, you said the key word there, waiver. You said Winston. Whoever wants to go first. if someone else wants to add to this waiver wire thing, I know in the past we used to let Kyle take the reins on the waiver wire, but week one's a whole different world for a lot of managers.
Yeah, I think we can all start off with the number one waiver wire pick. It's going to be Mitchell. He's going to be the backfield. I think there's one other back behind or that.
Yes, Chet, explain your noises, please.
Shanahan. It's he is going to be the number one waiver wire ad. For people that have that top pick, I feel like you're in a tough spot because he's going to go on the waivers. Like people are going to put in the claim. With that top spot, is this when you pull the trigger? Like right now, is this the guy? Is he James Robinson?
No.
I don't know. And quick disclaimer, I'm a little bit mad at myself. I actually covered Elijah Mitchell in high school. I have followed him his whole career. I've interviewed him multiple times. Great kid. Had no idea he was going to make it to the NFL. Like, swear to God. Travis Etienne, first time I saw him, like, that kid's going to be in the NFL. Elijah Mitchell, good. He was chucking kids, and he went and he played for the Raging Cajuns, and he was great for them. They had a really solid backfield, so he was kind of like a three-headed monster. But, you know, 6th-round draft pick this year that also included Trey Sermon, who was a healthy scratch. So I bring up Trey Sermon. I don't think he's going to be a healthy scratch anymore. And then you have JaMychal Hasty. So I could see Elijah Mitchell infuriating people this year, not because of what he does, but because of how Shanahan approaches the backfield. So I'm just going to tell people, beware. Like, maybe you struck gold. Maybe you're going to be frustrated all season just because of how that offense operates. We saw it last year when Jeff Wilson would have a 100-yard game and 2 touchdowns. JaMychal Hasty had an 80-yard game with it. It's just that offense works with whoever's getting the ball. You just don't know who's going to get the ball.
I will agree. Be careful in a lot of the waiver pickups. The only one where I'm gonna probably stress, like, if you have that number one spot, grab them. Is if you're in a 12-team league, you already know where the running back situations are. If you got only 2 running backs and you're sitting there on your bench with like a Zach Moss who you were hoping would play and now is going on as your backup running back, I think you have to make that move. I also think you need to look at what your team needs and look at it, because in my situation, I'm grabbing him because I need another wide receiver. I have currently 3 running backs. If he even can play for a couple weeks to get me past buys and I can get a wide receiver too, I win that trade as well. So I agree that it's going to be he's probably going to infuriate a lot of people, just like James Robinson infuriated a lot of people this week. Yeah, but I still think he's worth a waiver pickup if you're in that position, just because he's a running back.
That combination,
I completely agree. Worth it. Top spot, I'm nervous.
Fair.
That combination you said there of Trey Sermon being a healthy scratch, who was a lot of people's favorite rookie this summer, that they thought if he was going to be in the lineup week 1, how good he could be. And to add to that, when you said Shanahan, Chet, I thought, oh, it's the family. It's Mike and Kyle, because remember, the whole family's had a history of turning these running backs into 1,000-yard guys. Go back to the 90s Broncos. No disrespect to Terrell Davis, is a Hall of Famer, but there was that stretch there where they had guys like Olandis Gary and Mike Anderson where it didn't matter who was playing running back. And then it flipped to his son where, and Kyle hit this earlier in the podcast, everybody gets hurt week 1, but the Niners just figure it out and go from there. I've got one, even though Mitchell's going to get the most talk, this one's going to depend on what league you're playing in. So, for instance, the Godzilla Media League is a Yahoo league. Check his position availability. There's a player out there named Johnstone for the New Orleans Saints who put up close to 16 points in week 1. He is being listed as a wide receiver and a tight end. And that is a massive deal. Yahoo has him listed as both right now. So if you were one of those people we talked about in July and August who waited, now I see the phones going up right now. Everybody's trying to for the Godzilla League. Check out Juwan Johnson at 16, because if you waited on tight ends, this is exactly what we talked about, where we had a question in our mailbag last week about, would you rather have, after week 1, 3 tight ends or no tight ends? Well, it's not even really a tight end. It's just basically a player the Saints didn't know what to do with, and you can take the advantage of that. So that's my big play. that if you're in a league that you don't have Waller or Kelsey, I know Kyle Pitts wasn't great week 1 and that didn't help me, but that's another player to keep an eye on. Juwan Johnson for the New Orleans Saints, number 83. And I feel like I have to say the numbers now because of how weird week 1 did look with those single digits running around.
Yep, he's listed as a tight end exclusively in ESPN.
Ooh.
Yeah.
As Chet just put in his claim right now for one of his leagues, and Kyle's thinking, what other league can I jump Chet on right now? If you guys don't mind, I feel like we need to combine the Johnstone Supply and Troy mailbag with waiver wire, unless you guys had another one, because I think it kind of goes to this theme here.
I just had two more quick
Yeah.
because they're available in a lot of leagues. So I like, as we're continuing to talk about tight ends, potential of add of Cole Kmet. I very active in the passing game with Andy Dalton, and Justin Fields obviously saw a little bit of work, but 7 targets for the Bears, caught 5 for 42. So for a back end, low tier tight end, if he can continue to produce, he was a highly sought out prospect last year. He could make some interesting noise if he continues on the rate that he's going. So I actually don't mind grabbing Cole Kmet if you're lower on waiver priority and it's not going to affect you too much, or maybe you get lucky and wait for waivers to clear and you get it without using a priority pick. And then my second one, who I was extremely surprised to see that, because I think all 3 of us are pretty high on Gabe Davis. Emmanuel Sanders almost doubled the usage that Gabe Davis saw. So Gabe, granted, he caught the touchdown, the lone touchdown from Josh Allen. Gabe saw 43 offensive snaps, 51% of the plays, to Sanders 79.
Whoa.
So Sanders was on the field 93% of the time. So when you look at the balance there, I think Gabe is a significantly higher upside in the red zone, just because he's a big body. He knows how to get open. Allen has proven that he loves Gabe in the red zone. But if you're looking for consistency in a flex spot, Sanders might be there. He had a very good game. If Josh hit that one long throw, Sanders would have had a phenomenal game, because that would have boosted him up probably another 12 points. So if Sanders isn't available in your league, I think he's worth a mid-round or mid-road waiver pickup, just because of the usage. And obviously we know that the Bills are going to be pass heavy because they refuse to run the ball, and it bit them in the ass against the Steelers.
This is going to sound very cliche, but Gabriel Davis, it seems as if every single time he has touched a football field since he's been a pro, he's gotten better. This started all the way back in training camp. I remember people were talking about Davis, and I'm like, okay, he's okay. They got enough wide receivers. They're good. And then practice after practice, preseason game after preseason game, he hit it on fire in 2020, and he's continuing to improve, man. Just every single week, it seems like his stock's going up for that team. Let's get into it. Johnstone Supply and Troy mailbag this week. Fall is officially here, and that means changes are coming to your home. Does your furnace need a new control board or a blower motor? Are you even sure what that means? Johnstone Supply and Troy can help you figure that out. If you're looking for an upgrade for your heating system, the new energy-efficient ECM furnace or the low-temperature ductless systems, they have it for you. Your home is heated properly this fall. The colder weather on the way. It's going to happen because of Johnstone Supply and Troy, a family-owned and operated business. They're helping upstate New York residents for decades. And you can visit their store on 6th Avenue in Troy for more information on how you can get help this fall. Stop in, say hello to our guys, Tom and James. Maybe my guy George is going to be in there. He's coming up on a new episode of Getting There with Guys. I was hanging out with him last night. Cannot wait to share his boxing stories from the past. What an awesome guy. Again, if you need those changes on your filter, furnace updates, and more, your place this fall is Johnstone Supply and Troy. Give him a call today at 518-272-5922. 518-272-5922. Johnstone Supply in Troy. We're going to keep it simple and easy here for this one. Going back to the DMs. Again, GOZ, Gaz at GazalaMedia.com, Twitter, at @we_talk_fantasy. We'll also keep the DMs open there too. How often and how frequent should moves be made in week 1? TG, simple and easy as that. If you want week 1, are you going to be active? Do you want to trade? Whoever wants it first. Do you sit, not make a move week 1? Do you let it ride? How do you guys handle week 1 waiver wires and transactions?
I think you and Chet, I think Chet kind of hit on it a little earlier, but you have to take what happened in week 1 into effect. Look at Melvin Gordon. Kind of to Chet's point. Is his stock going to be at an all-time high? Possibly. Because we don't there's also the rookie there,
Javonte Williams.
Javonte
Yep.
Williams, who everyone's at some point thinking is going to take over that backfield. So I think you have to play at that from that perspective, but also looking at your lineup and what some teams did, who surprised, who looked good. For me, for example, I'm already shopping my running backs because I have 3 of them because I need an upgrade at wide receiver, and I know how good the Saints looked. And if I can plan for the future, I expect it to be sub 500 in this league. Can I get extra value for a Josh Jacobs who had a touchdown game? Or sell a little bit high on Eckler or Gibson? They just had lower end games. Or can you grab Mitchell and sell him to the Mostert owners for a low level tier or wide receiver 2 just to make small upgrades? I think there's never a time in fantasy that you can't be active on trades because you have to be open to everything. But you also have to know what you need and what your future looks like. You can't be looking at it week by week. You also need to be looking at the future and what your team holds down the road, from buys to injuries to how the team performed and how they looked. I think it's all fair and game.
I agree with Kyle. I think you always got to be proactive. And I'm one of those, I probably blow things up too quick. But usually it's because I've been depleted by injuries. And so I'm scrambling to try to make up for that. Because like you can tell if you have a team that's just going to be competitive. Like, you're like, you know what? Maybe I won this week, but I sneaked by. I was the 7th highest scoring team. I faced the 8th highest. Like, I got lucky week 1. But no, I think what Kyle said, look for those players that disappointed. I think that's the thing that I try to do the most is we're all very reactive when it comes to fantasy football. We're reactive in life. And so, yeah, if you drafted Aaron Jones and he put up a stinker, try to give someone a package deal for a couple guys that played well. Kyle brings up Elijah Mitchell. It's a great example. And that actually, Kyle, you saying that might have changed my mind as the number 1 waiver guy, because now you do have trade potential because you're adding a running back into the fold who you might not need. Let's say you're all set at running back, but you don't want somebody else to get Elijah McGuire for air quotes free. Take him and be like, all right, guys, pay up. Put him on, text your fantasy group and be like, you know what? Elijah Mitchell's on the block. Give me your best offer. So I love that. Another guy that I thought would be interesting to go after. Oh man, I just completely. Oh no, another guy that would be good trade value right now, I think is Tyson Williams. Mm-hmm. Tyson Williams had a great run in his game and had a pretty good 3 quarters. Disappeared in the 4th in overtime. That's a backfield that's going to get muddled, similar to the 49ers. Latavius Murray got a goal line touchdown. I could see him getting a lot of goal line work moving forward. Eventually, Le'Veon Bell or Devontae Freeman's going to start getting some run. So that's another guy where he might have already shown his highest peak. Why not try to get somebody else big? Like if Kyle talks about getting a wide receiver 2. You get a wide receiver 2 and Tyson Williams is a thing of the past by week 6. You just had an amazing trade. Whereas if you wait on these guys that have high value now, the value might not be there in a few weeks.
This is my Achilles heel when it comes to fantasy football. I've known it for as long as I've played. My buddies bust my chops over it. I cannot figure out how to change it. I don't know if you can change it this year, and I'm very much recognizing my weakness is that if I start off well, I don't move anything.
Yeah.
And it's the problem is that, okay, if you're winning games, let's say you go 3-0 or 4-0 to start the season and your lineup's really productive. You don't want to take guys out of your lineup because you're like, okay, they've proven to me that they can do it. I don't want to say I fall asleep, but it's like, okay, I can play the matchups in week 5, week 6, week 7, but who in the world am I going to find that's better than I'm already getting the production out of? If I'm 4-0, then I'm pretty happy with my production of my guys and my team. Maybe you get 1 or 2 that could be better, but I always fall victim to this where you can draft really well. You can have a pretty good bench. I'm one of the people that doesn't even look at bye weeks anymore. That, okay, I'm playing it for a 5 or 15 point difference one time, and that can happen any other week. So I've kind of backed off on bye weeks unless it's a super important position like quarterback. Even you can stream it sometimes too. So when I hit week 9 to 12, my buddies will always say I can't wait to play guys when it comes to late November, early December, because they'll know either I was 2-2 to start the season, I was active in mid October and made moves, Or if I was really good, I might have sat with the players who are good in September and October with really easy matchups, and I hit December, and it's like, oh boy, the trade deadline passed. I didn't prepare for the next 5 weeks. Look, and I hate that answer because I know it, but I don't want to move my lineup. I'm just going to dance with who brought me. If you know me for preseason picks, we do this all the time. Like, if a team's in third place and there's 10 games left to go in the season, I'm either going to watch my ticket earn or burn, baby. And that's how I feel with my fantasy football lineups every year.
Oh, I think and sometimes that works. Like, I don't think you have to make moves. I think you should always be looking and testing the waters. Like, it can never hurt to try to lowball someone, and you get surprised with what you get. But I've been in leagues where people have literally won a championship with the team they drafted.
Coast to coast.
Dude, it happens. If you don't get injuries and you drafted really well and you hit on some of the Adam Thielen types, earlier in his career, and it's very frustrating because you could be the guy that trades 20 times, earns that playoff spot, and you get beat by a guy who literally just had to, change his bye week players. And it's like, oh wow, real tough job you had there. But that's how it goes sometimes. There's a lot of luck involved in this, and if it's working, stick with it. What's the saying? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I also love, guys, your point there at the end. I know it's not week one related, but from a trade perspective, if you're looking at trades and you look at that start of the season matchup and you realize, oh, Joe Mixon has gone up against, 4 of the top or the bottom 6 run defenses and put up points. And then that back half of the schedule, he's going up against Tampa Bay or in some of those top end. And you want to dangle the carrot a little bit, like, hey, I'll give up Joe Mixon for a package deal, like you said, get a running back who might have a little bit of a better schedule or see what you can get out of him. I think that's also really important to look at from a being proactive side is what do your matchups look like down the road? So also don't forget that end. That was a really important point that I definitely thought was huge.
Great point by Kyle, because that is the best advice we can really give. And that was going to be an advice we kind of sat for 6-7 weeks that trade deadline time. Go on your phone and look at matchups 11, 12, 13, 14. You can go deep into the playoffs too, because if you're making a move for a team you think is going to be a playoff team, why not look at week 16 and week 15 and week 17? All that stuff matters. That if you're making a trade a month out, that is the difference between the championship team and a team that's watching your buddies lift the trophy.
Yep.
All right, week 2. I continue to change the name for whatever we're calling this. Studs and duds, stars and sits. Unless you guys remembered something that I did. Every week, this might be a different name for how the hell we're evaluating the players that we do and don't like for week 2. As usual, I'm just going to mix and match mine because I put my notes in all different orders of players. My notes, by the way, for fantasy football are not far different than my notes for gambling each week, where they're just a mix and match of numbers and they're up and down and horizontal and vertical. The first I have in my notes, and this is going to go against a lot of things we've already said on this podcast, for a player that I think could have a really good week 2 and above expectations. That's Atlanta Falcon quarterback Matt Ryan.
Ew, what?
So hear this out. Hear me out on this, right? He was horrendous in that Philadelphia Eagles game week 1. Didn't throw for over 200 yards. Clearly looks as if his career might be at the tail end of it. But I brought up gambling, right? Buccaneers Falcons is a 13-point spread, which for a divisional game in the NFL to be a 2-touchdown favorite is really unheard of. You might get once in a while games like that, but you've got to be epically bad. We got to talk about Jags or terrible teams of the past few decades that have double-digit touchdown deficits. So if Tampa destroys Atlanta, it's going to be the classic throw the ball all the time in the second half. It's going to be wheel and wheel and wheel it out there. I feel like Matt Ryan might finish close to the top 10 in quarterbacks just because of how bad Atlanta's going to get blown out against Tampa, or how many points he puts up more in that second half and they do get blown out. We'll see. So Matt Ryan's the first name I have written down here.
Oh, I'm going to freaking explode. I almost
do it. You can do it. It's a podcast.
But, dude, that should have happened last week.
Yeah.
Against the Eagles. I'm with you. I think he's been a signature garbage time quarterback, for the guys like Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. But it didn't happen last week. They were down, and I was like, all right, here we go, baby. Let's get Kyle Pitts going. Let's get Calvin Ridley going. And he just stinks. Matt Ryan stinks. Gross. Oh,
It also doesn't help that there's nobody outside of Pitts and Ridley. Like, where did Gage go? And I was high on Gage and just gone.
yeah. Oh, but it's probably gonna work for you. But meh.
Trust me, I've heard the Matt Ryan hate all summer from people. Why even have him on your roster? Hey, it's week 2. If you're in a double quarterback league, if you're going to sit somebody, right. All right. Look, if you are in a spot where you're the worst quarterback team in your league, that's what I'm saying. Like top 8, you're not going to bench Matt Ryan. But if you're team at 9 through 14 in your league, it's time to consider starting him this week. Yeah.
I'm just going to go around and around and around.
Yeah.
Love it. I'm going to go Jalen Hurts. Set it and forget it. We talked about him last week. I believe let's give a shout out to Matthew Berry at ESPN for saying that he thinks Jalen Hurts could be potentially number 1 quarterback in fantasy. He looked great. You get a little bit nervous being in a new system. What's it going to look like week 1? Devontae Smith, yes, they were college teammates. Are they going to be in sync? He crossed all the boxes, dotted all the I's, crossed the D's, however you want to say it. Like, he looked really good. Granted, it was the Falcons, but I like the matchup against San Francisco. Jared Goff diced them up in the second half, mainly fourth quarter. That's going to be a game where either the Eagles are going to be trailing or it's going to be super competitive. And I think Jalen Hurts, I like having an athletic quarterback against the Bosa and that defensive line. He can escape them, make some big plays down the field. Give me Jalen Hurts, 18.8 points. I think he's going to have another big week.
Kyle, I don't want to jump.
I set it and forget it. I think forward, set it, forget it.
I don't want to jump Kyle, but my running back was Miles Sanders. I wrote down because Miles Sanders, like you just said, Chet, 450 yards were allowed in that game to the Detroit Lions. Now, again, a lot of that comes because it's such a blowout and they're going to throw the ball and make yardage happen. And San Francisco playing some. I compared it earlier today to like somebody put their car in neutral and watched it slowly backpedal out of the parking. Whoa, hey, why is it coming out of the driveway? Someone stop the. That's what it was like, but still the points are out there in that, you're playing Hurts, I'm playing Sanders in that same matchup.
I love that. Dude, I thought Sanders looked good. I was actually impressed. They got him in space a little bit, and that's what you have to do with a guy like Sanders.
Yep. My love for the week is somebody whose quarterback looked phenomenal that we talked a lot about. Give me Cooper Kupp and go after Cooper if you could somehow get a hold of him. We have not talked about enough how good Matty Ice looked. He looked like the Matthew Stafford that everybody was projecting would be one of the best quarterbacks of all time. He's got a line that can protect him. He's got weapons all over the place. And 10 targets for Kupp. He was the next closest one was Matthew Stafford's usual favorite players, which are tight ends. Higbee had 6 targets. But I think the only thing that you want to be careful of is it's against the Lions, so it could have the potential to be a quick blowout. However, I think Matthew Stafford's going to look Kupp's way right from the get-go, go up early. He's only projected at 12 points. I think he's going to get 17, 18 again. Nobody's going to be able to hang with them, especially with the Okudah injury. So I absolutely love Kupp in this matchup. And if you want another deep sleeper who I don't know why and how we forgot about Van Jefferson.
Yep.
How? We talked a little bit about him last year. He had a lot of good promise coming out. But I think it was always overshadowed with Kupp and Woods. But did Van Jefferson look real good on some of those routes? And I mean, that deep ball to Van was awesome, and how he just got up and wasn't touched, and that was the most impressive part. So give me Kupp, give me some Van Jefferson. I mean, Van for more deep, but Kupp, set it and forget it. Just like you said with Hurts, you do not move him out of your starting lineup for anybody.
What's Stafford's nickname?
Matty Ice. Or no, I think it was Matty Ice at one other point too in his career though.
Matt Ryan.
Everybody named Matt should be named Matty Ice. I'm okay with that nickname.
I thought he was nicknamed that.
My son is named Rex, and I feel like anybody named Rex is going to be just sexy Rexy. Like there's just certain names that no matter what your name is, you're stuck with that name. And any Matts want to be Matty Ice forever, I'm fine with it.
Is that why you named him Rex? You were just like,
no.
Sexy Rexy.
No. I have one more, and I know I'm completely jumping out of order and be like, guys, why are you just doing this the way you want? Because I just have my notes down, so suck it, both of you, so I don't forget my picks later on. Sterling Shepard, Thursday night against the Washington football team. Shepard was a classic bye week guy for most of his career. Hasn't he been like, oh, I got Sterling Shepard. Cool. When somebody's on a bye week, I'll play him. Maybe I'll play a matchup once. He put up 20-plus points in week 1, and he's rocking the single digits. So automatically he looks kind of cooler as a wide receiver now this season. The football team allowed the fifth most receiving yards to wide receivers. Now, Justin Herbert throwing against your defense, and no, Ryan Fitzpatrick helps out those stats. But Daniel Jones, talking about people who stink, Daniel Jones is terrible. I was texting you guys that stuff in the DM. My favorite stat is that Jones never made an all-conference team in 4 years. He has to figure this out fast. If he's that bad for the next 6 weeks, he's going to get benched. Mike Glennon's getting in the game. And it starts on Thursday. He needs to be good, and Shepard's a big reason for that. Shepard, 9.5 projection. I could see him doing 14, 15, and that's good enough to maybe get him in the top 10 to 12 again.
I'm going to jump out of order and then circle back to my love, but you bring up Thursday Night Football. Saquon Barkley makes my hate list, and I think you seriously have to consider not playing him. Short week against a good defense, a great front seven in Washington. Saquon Barkley only had 11 touches. It was our biggest fear when we were talking about where do you draft Saquon? Well, we have to see it first. And they told us it's going to be a progression, and they need to make sure his leg is fully okay before they give him the normal workload that we saw when he was a rookie. 11 touches, average 2.6 yards per carry. Horrible, especially for where you had to draft him. On a short week in Washington, I'm seriously considering benching Saquon Barkley. If you can get Elijah Mitchell, I would start Elijah Mitchell over Saquon Barkley this week. Like that, you have to try to find one of those guys that might have the hot hand, a Tyson Williams, which now I'm circled back to my love. Tyson Williams makes my love list for week 2. Going against Kansas City, you're going to notice a lot of times I'm going to pick loves against Kansas City because their defense doesn't scare me a lot, and you're going to have to keep up with Mahomes, Kelsey, and Tyreek. So your offense is going to have to go. For Tyson Williams, I talk about how I think eventually it's going to become a crowded backfield. I don't know if it happens right away. Like I could still see Latavius getting some of the goal line work. But if I'm the Ravens, my strategy for that game is going to be slow the game down. I don't want Mahomes touching the football. How do you do that? You run the football with Lamar Jackson and Tyson Williams. So he's a guy projected at 10. I think that's very attainable. I think Tyson Williams is going to be a great play for week 2. Oh, and I guess I'll jump right into my last one for love. Hollywood Brown, same reason. I was actually really impressed with Hollywood against the Raiders. Big disappointment last year in year number 2. Hollywood Brown as a rookie, we were all in love with. If Lamar can get a little more consistent in the passing game, he had 6 catches for a nice 69 yards and a touchdown. Nice. Again, you're going up against the Chiefs. You're going to have to score. I like Hollywood Brown, only 9.7 projection. I think that's also very attainable.
My love, my last love that I had.
Ashley.
It's a great movie. Love Actually is a great movie.
Touche. Is actually a similar player, I think, to you, Chet. I think, what did you say, Marquise is averaging what, 9 point, or said projected 9.2 this week?
9.7, yep, and half point.
Corey Davis.
Yeah.
Corey freaking Davis.
Didn't you say he was one of your sleeper picks for the whole season?
I'm pretty sure I think my yearly sleeper pick.
Yeah, so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he is by far and wide the favorite in the on that team from a wideout standpoint. 7 targets, 97 yards, 2 TDs. Again, no Stephon Gilmore still for the Patriots. That Patriots defense did not look great, especially with no Stephon. Tua didn't play bad by any means. I think it was just some more offensive woes and some defensive struggles on both ends that kind of clamped it down. But I think if the Jets can establish some sort of a run game, Corey Davis will feast even more. But he's projected at 9.7. I don't see how he doesn't get north of 15 on this week. He's going to get a touchdown at some point. Give me Corey Davis for my last love outside of my wife. And then I hate that. I think you do really need to consider benching. I'm going to keep it in LA with my cup love. But Jonathan Taylor, no, I do not like this matchup at all. Taylor, I mean, what more do we need to say about that Rams offense, that Rams defense? The Rams are going to get up early. It's going to force Carson Wentz to throw the ball all game long. I think you're going to see a little more over Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor's still probably a little banged up. and I don't love the matchup of that Rams defensive line going up against Jonathan Taylor and that Colts pretty beat up offensive line. So maybe looking for some other options there. You might be in trouble because he's obviously a high pick, similar to like Ezekiel Elliott situation where Dak audibles out of 12 runs. No big deal. But you might need to look elsewhere outside of Jonathan Taylor this week against that Rams defense.
It's amazing to think that Chet said his player at running back, Saquon. Kyle said his player at running back, Jonathan Taylor. And I'm going to say Zeke. And that is what? 3 of the top 9 in week 2. We said throughout this entire podcast, don't overreact. It's going to be fine. You're going to set your lineup. Now, bench all the running backs you drafted in the first round going into week 2. But I'm with you guys. Like Zeke, I feel like Zeke Elliott may be the most talked about player on We Talk Fantasy, and none of us are Cowboy fans. But what happened in that Thursday night game, and if we had probably the lengthiest conversation of any game or any fantasy matchup between us 3, was that Cowboy-Buccaneer game because of that strategy where Zeke's going to put up less than 5 points a game. You can't have him in your lineup. Like, there is so much uncertainty, and if you want to roll the dice one more time with who probably was your first-round pick, go ahead. But after week 2, if he puts up another stinker, and we have to have the conversation of whether Zeke is just completely overrated in fantasy football. If maybe that's the headline of our week 3 show coming up, because I don't like his matchup. I don't think Zeke's going to have this breakout game all of a sudden against the Chargers. Chargers were a top 10 defense last week, and they know that, as you guys have both pointed out, Dak Prescott's just going to call what he wants anyways. So I don't like any of that stuff for Zeke for my hate list. I just had to pick that up right when Kyle said that because it's like, that's all the running backs. That's insane.
And the progression of Pollard. That's the other thing that worries me about Zeke. It's not just that he didn't produce in week 1. It's that his counterpart did. And I didn't see the exact snap count, but it wasn't that dissimilar. I'm sure it still was in favor of Elliott, but what was it, like something 60-40? Like we saw a lot of Pollard early and often and not just on third down. So that makes me even a little bit more worried.
The only thing from the Zeke side to monitor throughout the week, because luckily this is what time is this game? Sunday evening? Yeah, 4:25 game. Obviously, Zach Martin's going to be back from COVID stuff, which is going to help a lot during the run game. But Lyle Collins, while he is suspended for the 5 games for substance abuse, I actually just double-checked. It looks like he's going to try to appeal it. So if he ends up winning that appeal, he will play this week. So that means you'll have Zach Martin and Lyle Collins back in that starting offensive line. 2 big run boys who are going to push the ball. That's the only thing I worry about, and I think you need to pay close attention to that offensive line because that offensive line is everything for Zeke. And I know the Chargers were a top 10 defense, but they did give up 90 yards to Gibson, and all the Chargers really needed to do was stack the box because I don't think Heineke's going to be a very good solution in Washington. Unfortunately, that's probably what's going to keep Washington now out of the playoffs is Heineke at quarterback. But
no love for Heineke, huh?
No. But I do not hate Zeke this week. I think it'll be interesting to see how the offensive line stuff shakes out.
Is he a guy you guys might try to target? You know, we talk about targeting guys who struggle, but you don't want to target guys who are going to continue to struggle. You know what I mean? Like look for the games that frustrated managers, but don't load your team up with losers. You know what I mean? Like, and so I look at Aaron Jones. Like I think that whole Packers offense, they'll figure it out.
I was going to say something about Chet because Chet's covered Saratoga so often. That was called a horse racing analogy he just did. Do you like betting on the horse that's 8-1? Yeah, but what if he loses the race? Then you don't win it. That's really what you just did. If we heard it so often, bet the horse with value. I want to bet the horse that's going to win, though. Can I do that instead? That's basically what Zeke Elliott's turned into, a Saratoga horse race.
I feel like if you're trying to target Zeke, you give up something like, and I feel like I have a pretty good trade offer here for Zeke, especially if he struggles again in week 2. I don't know how much week 1 because of recency bias, but week 2 he struggles. Throw out a trade offer because you got Williams off wires from Baltimore. Say he has another decent game, and you give up Chenault. You get Zeke, you stash him on the bench if you have other options, and you see what happens.
Wait, did you just say you would trade Tyson Williams and Laviska Chenault for Zeke?
If he struggles again in week 2,
nobody's gonna take that. Unless Chenault goes crazy, but still.
If somebody puts up a 17-point game in Williams and Chenault, I would listen. I would listen. I don't know if I'd accept, but I'd listen.
I know. Mac would probably get that trade offer.
I knew. I walked myself right into that, didn't I?
I think if Zeke goes up another 4 point game, you're going to sit there and go, oh, shit, I need to do something.
But Chenault didn't do anything week 1.
Chenault had 10 points, 9.4.
Is that full point PPR? I had him at like 40 yards.
Yeah, 7 catches on 9 targets for 50 yards.
Shit.
Just because he didn't have a touchdown. And then, and then if Williams duplicates his results with another 16-point game.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You would say no to the trade. You would just hear it.
Oh, yeah. I would
Kyle
need like a bona fide. Because I think Chenault's a flex at this point.
Yep.
And Tyson Williams is RB2. An RB2.
Would Zeke be RB2 at that point?
Right.
He's that bad.
But yeah, you're not getting better at that. I guess you're getting another. Yeah.
You're not sure how many.
It's worth a shot.
I hear what you're saying, Chet. You know how many points per week, basically, week after week, is your team getting? Remember that old way? Some leagues used to actually evaluate week by week stuff on trades. You used to go through and accept. I had 2 more hates. Kyle, that was the last hate. You had 1 more.
No, you're good.
And I wanted to make sure I set this up for you because Josh Allen's one of them. Josh Allen right now is listed as the 5th highest quarterback to score this week in fantasy. Now, interesting, at least on Yahoo projected scoring here, we're taping this early on a Tuesday night. The difference between quarterback 5 and quarterback 20 is less than 5 points. So that's basically a touchdown. Now, you say, like, why are the projections so close? Well, it's week 2. You know, we're kind of still in that feel it out process of what quarterbacks are going to be productive. Look with the Dolphin defense. I get it. It's Mac Jones who's a rookie. And the Belichick Patriots have struggled consistently year after year against Miami. But Miami just might be good. Like, this might just be what the Dolphin football team is. They win games like 17-13. Tua, I think we all just have to accept this. Tua is not going to ever be a fantasy star. Tua is going to be a 210-yard, 2-touchdown, 1-pick guy. And he's going to be quarterback 15 to 25 every year in fantasy. That's just what it's going to be. And because of that, I think Josh Allen is going to have something weird going on in that game because you guys know I love bringing the gambling side of this into fantasy. The Bills are only a 3.5-point favorite against Miami. Now, some people know that half is always that hook it's called is interesting because you don't know who to bet because that 3.5 can cost you a bet. But knowing how good Buffalo is, knowing how ticked off they are against that Pittsburgh game, and Miami's coming off a win, you would think it might be closer to 7, 6.5 for the Bills. Something's weird about that game. So because of Vegas knowing something I would go lower on Josh Allen. And the same can be said for Robbie Anderson in Carolina. Panthers play the Saints this week. Jameis Winston, as we said, 5 touchdowns. Look at it. There it is. Right. So Winston throws 5 touchdowns. The Panther offense looks okay. The Jets aren't great in week 1, but the Panthers get the victory. And they got that cool, I don't know if you guys saw like that crazy Panther CGI thing they put on Twitter. It's unbelievable. But the over-under in that game is 44. 44? Winston almost had 44 points by himself, and now combined these 2 teams aren't going to hit 44? What is going on with that number? So because of that Vegas gambling, see, Kyle's pointing for the over 2, right? Like, I would think it's over 2, but right now, unless that line doesn't move, I think something's happening. Defensive battle between these 2. So I'd go under on Robbie Anderson.
I love it. New Orleans defense is good. I like their secondary. I'm not sure who Lattimore is going to cover in that one, but I don't really see the Saints getting burned deep. I think it's going to be more DJ Moore of the middle. Maybe Terrace Marshall has a better game. I just don't think whenever you play Robbie Anderson, you're hoping for the home run. Like, it's home run or 4 strikeouts. Like, it's that kind of guy for a baseball analogy. So, yeah, I'm not feeling the 10.3 against New Orleans. You better options out there than Robbie.
My favorite part about this podcast, and it's happened to all 3 of us on this episode, whether it was Jawan Johnson that Chet grabbed his phone for, once Kyle heard the over-under was 44 in Panther Saints, he went right to his phone and thought, how do I get to Rivers right now from my house and bet on this game immediately? And I think I had that too with another play with one of you guys I wrote down immediately. So that was incredible. Another week 1 performance. Any final words, guys, before we get ready for week 2 of the NFL season?
Can I ask on my D real quick?
Sure.
Deebo Samuel, baby. Woo! Wasn't he my sleeper of the year?
Yes, he was. Corey Davis and Deebo are looking good.
Boom. God, did he look freaking good. If he can stay healthy, Deebo, man.
Well, you did call it too. Get him early while he's healthy.
Dude, play him. Play him, and then when he gets hurt, you're like, you know what, Debo, you did your job. You held on as long as you could. You did better than Raheem Mostert.
My finishing notes for you guys is go hammer that over.
Boys, we'll talk again next week. See ya.
See ya.